Hi, have
Hi there.
you ever
I'm doing
wondered how to have your book made into a film? Well, welcome to the Traveling Publisher. I'm Jennifer, and here with me today is Anthony Estrada.
hello.
Hi, Anthony is the author of this amazing book called Those Who Fear Us. You're going to find a video below where we talk about the book, but here we're going to talk about Anthony's other superpower, which is he's a producer and a writer in LA. Anthony, hi. Thanks so much for
Hi.
joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So it was an incredible opportunity working on your book. And I remember as we were putting your book together, how much I felt that it was like a movie. And I kept thinking over and over, of course he's going to make a movie. Of course he's going to make a movie. And
Yeah.
so I know that was in your mind as we were writing the book as well, right?
Yes, very much so.
And so it's pretty common. I think probably all of my novelists at some point in the process will say to me, I think that actually, an author just said this yesterday. I think Emily Blunt should play my main, my main character in the movie. As a little aside, just saying, do you think my book could be made into a movie?
Right.
And so, this is a world I know nothing about. I was hoping you could share with us a little bit about how does this world work? How would an author go about having their book like yours made into a movie?
Yeah. So I would say there's just a couple different ways to go about it, right? So I'm just gonna kind of put out a bunch of different things there, and hopefully people can make what they need to of it. But for me, first of all, when I was writing, before I started writing it, I just said to myself, can I explain this to someone in one sentence? Right.
Whoa.
That's usually what executives or producers will be looking for. Is this easily explainable to someone? Right. And for me, if I could fit my entire statement about the book in what's called a log line,
Long
what,
line.
yeah,
That's an important
then,
word.
yeah. So I was like, if I can do that, and I can express what the main conflicts are and what the main characters are, then this is like kind of movie ready. Does that make sense?
I love that.
So
It's so amazing to me that you're going to take this book, which is quite a long book, that would be made into like a 2 hour movie, but you have to distill it into one sentence. That's fascinating. Is that
yeah,
because people are so busy, they only have time to read one sentence?
yeah, I would say more so. It's just like when people read my log line, I get a lot of reaction of whoa, that's exactly what you want from people, right? It's just like, oh, I see it right away. I can see the conflicts. I can see what the characters are like.
Well, you
It
got to tell
helps
us
you.
what's the log line.
Oh man, I got to pull it up. Sorry, I don't have it right
Oh,
on
that's
me right now.
okay. You
But
have to
that's the
start
thing.
scratch.
It's just a matter of making sure that you can express the idea as simply as possible, right? Because when executives or producers are going to their superiors, they need to be able to express it to a boss or whomever that's working on a ton of projects to say, this is what this project is. To when the boss goes, oh, okay, yes, then we should do that. Like, get more materials for me. That's your first entree into your book getting read, your script getting read, whatever. Like, that's going to be your first and honestly one of your most important things.
Yeah.
Um, the other part of me too was the reason I went to a book next was because Hollywood is so fascinated with IP right now, intellectual property, that
Oh,
I was like, okay, great, then I'll build out my own audience and write a book.
all right.
So that's sort of what sort of drove it. I mean, yes, the artistic side of me was like, I'm a much better writer, longer form writer than I am a script writer. But I was like, it makes a lot more sense to write the book
Yeah.
because then a producer or an executive can read your book, whether it's on a New York Times bestseller or they find it randomly at some bookstore in the middle of Connecticut, right? When they're on vacation. And they go, whoa, this is a really good book. This should be made into a movie, a miniseries, whatever. They're then having the opportunity to go, oh, I know what I'm seeing for this. And, kind of go from there. So those would be my two biggest things right now is just like, can you distill your story into one sentence where it's really impactful, really powerful? And secondly, can you develop the IP enough to where someone can be interested in it? And a lot of the advice I got writing the book was write it like a movie, write it quick, write it like scenes, write it so it moves. And I would say, bragging here a little bit, my movie very much reads like, or excuse me, my book very much reads like a movie.
Josh
It's
is not a
quick.
brag. That is a fact. I can tell you.
it, it moves really quickly. You go from scene to scene. You don't spend too much time with things. Like you
Just
get the
flies.
action. Yeah. and you move on, right? And that's where people are going to go, whoa, I can see this as a movie. So
Yeah. 100%. Well, I'm absolutely fascinated to hear you say that for real. Some of these Hollywood producers might actually pick up a book in a bookstore and then make a call and say this should be. That's amazing. Like that's the ultimate getting discovered. That's incredible.
yeah, I mean, like here, the movie that Robert Zemeckis just did with Robin Wright and Tom Hanks. That was a graphic novel
Yeah.
Robert Zemeckis read, and he was like, "I want to make this," and boom,
That
here we are. It's out.
that's
So,
that's like the ultimate fairy tale. Well,
yeah,
here's an interesting question that makes me think of what if you do a book and you have the IP, but it's your book didn't sell tremendously well. Is that a factor? Are the producers only going to be interested in books that are huge sellers?
no, no. I think if I remember correctly, Forrest Gump was like did not sell well at all. Like it sold very poorly, and
There
it's
we
a
go.
timeless classic,
Yeah,
So
it's a timeless
there's a,
goal. Well said,
but
exactly.
there's a lot of examples like that of books that did not sell well, but somebody saw something in the book to want to make it into a movie, right? And so I would say don't ever lose hope if it's not selling well. It's just a matter of how can you package this to people, right? So for me, and I'm fortunate because I have the knowledge of the business to go, okay, how do I package this in a way? Can I make a deck that is really visual, that people really get, that expresses the characters, that expresses what I think people can do with it? Because you need to be able to sit there going, I can't just see it my way. How would other people see this too? Right.
Right.
So, for instance, Field of Dreams was a book called Shoeless Joe. I've read the book. It is not good. And it's like, and it's pretty different from the movie. But the initial kernel of the idea is there. And, I don't remember exactly how it ended up, the writing ended up happening, but because it's so different, whether they just bought the IP or, they worked with the writer, I don't know. But it's one of those things to where you go, there, whoever it was malleable enough to let the movie become what it needed to become. And again, another timeless classic.
Right, right. That's exactly right. That's exactly
you
right.
know,
So I'm super curious, like how many of these pieces, Anthony, do you think a writer would need to have in place before even thinking about approaching? And who does one approach? Like,
yeah,
does it they approach a producer? Like, who would you reach
yeah.
out to?
So like I, as a producer, will get random emails from people, right?
Really?
Yeah, and I'll read some of them, and really, it comes down to, do I read a lot of ego in this email from somebody?
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
does someone have? Do they have a good idea, right? And even if they don't have a good idea, if they wrote me a good email that seems like sensible, that doesn't seem like a crazy artist, that doesn't seem like I'm one of a billion people that they're sending it to, but it's very concise as to why they sent it to me,
I
then I'll
like it.
go, even if I don't think their idea is great, I'll at least entertain a conversation with them to go, hey, what do you have? Or like, tell me about this book. And we'll have conversations, because then for me, it becomes an exploratory conversation of how malleable is this person? Is this person great to work with? Are they going to be a pain in the butt? Like, and I will say, unless you write, the next Great Gatsby, most writers do not have the wherewithal, especially first time writers or first time novelists that are getting their movies made, do not have the wherewithal to be jerks. Like
That's
unless
really
you have written a brilliant book that, and I mean, not brilliant to yourself, but brilliant to other people as well, you don't have the wherewithal to be, a jerk to people. It's people want to work with people that they like, that they also can see, hey, this is not just going to be something that I'm going to spend a year fight. I'm going to spend a year, 2 years, 3 years fighting you. I want to know that it's going to be a year, 2 years, 3 years of peace, and like, or I shouldn't say peace, but like peace for the most part.
yeah,
Right?
happy, right? I love that. I never would have occurred to me how important that was. So it sounds like you're like someone could perhaps find a producer. Maybe they look on IMDb or
Yeah.
maybe they look at movies that they like.
Yeah.
Somehow find that person's email address or Facebook or something, craft a friendly, humble
Yep.
email with
Yep.
a log line, a one sentence description of your book. And then when would you do the screenplay, or is that way put in the
Yeah. Most of the time, that's down the line. And the reason I propose to writers that I work with just send log lines, because you're giving the producer or the executive a chance to just see what your story's about. Let
Ah,
them ask you for the screenplay, because the other thing that they run into a lot too is if they get unsolicited submissions, like for me, even for me, like I'm not, Graham King or one of these massive producers, but it's like, even if I get an email with a script, like blindly, I'm not comfortable reading it because it's like, if I read it, then I'm legally liable to say, even if it gets made by someone completely different, or if I make a movie that's even remotely has one sentence, they can sue me, right? To say you took my idea, you took my lines, whatever. So I would definitely just send a log line. Or honestly, sometimes I would just say, hey, I'm a writer. I have a book that's done pretty well. I'm really passionate about it. And I would love to, can I pitch you on 15 minutes? Or honestly, go to their assistant, find their assistant's email. That's usually the person to go to first before going to the producer or the executive. Um, and then the last thing I would do is like um, text them via Instagram, DM them via Instagram if you can find them. Um, yeah, and then obviously publishing your book and getting good PR about it, let them come to you.
Awesome, awesome advice. This has been incredible, Anthony. Thank you so
You're
very much.
welcome.
And I want to show your book again as a tremendous example of this. So if you're an author who wants to write a book and you have an idea that you think you could possibly imagine on the big screen someday or Netflix, get a hold of Anthony Estrada's awesome book, Those Who Fear Us, because you'll see what I mean when you read this book, that this is how you write a book that reads, that you see the picture of the movie in your mind. So Anthony's book is available on Amazon to order everywhere books are sold. And Anthony, please share with us your Instagram page.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's Anthony Estrada 22.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. I learned so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, friends, for joining us. Please, if you like this content, consider liking, subscribing, and go ahead and leave a comment for me or for Anthony. Thanks. Bye-bye.